Morning, Janice.
Morning, Anthony.
Today we're going to talk about how a real-world case example of where the judge gave her a court-appointed stranger. We've talked about court-appointed strangers in the past and how, I don't know, most people would rather choose who's going to be in charge of their healthcare decisions and financial situations, but sometimes you get stuck with who the judge chooses from you, and it's somebody you've never met before or had a relationship before. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So we're going to share the real world story of Miss H, who we've anonymized, of course, and how she got a court appointed stranger instead of her own family and instead of her own attorney. That was me. So this is a cautionary tale for anyone who's kind of pausing or dragging their feet on getting their plan done or getting their proper plan done.
Right.
This is kind of what can happen. All right. So first, we'll go into why Miss H needs a guardian. She's a solo ager, and for those of you who are new, that's somebody who's getting on in years, but is unmarried or doesn't have kids, or even if they do have kids, they're either estranged or just not available. So you don't have immediate family to fill these traditional roles. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely.
So Miss H prepared her will 10 years ago when she was in great health. Everything seems fine and everything seems like, it's all going to work out when you're in great health, right? And in that set of documents, she named me as her executor. She did a lot of research. She interviewed several folks and she was, we were a match. She was glad to choose me and I was honored to serve. So I was nominated as her executor in her will. Her only family are nieces and nephews, and for reasons that are her own, she disinherited all of them since they were estranged, and everything went to charity. Okay? So over the next 10 years, or the past 10 years, I guess you would say, just nature took its course and Miss H's health slowly declined. No, not great. So about 5 years ago, I said, hey, listen, you might want to take a look at setting up a trust or at least a power of attorney, because a will is great for after you pass away, but there's that sort of middle ground, I guess you'll call it, where you're still with us and you're still living, but you don't have your full facilities or faculties. Is that right? I don't know.
Faculties. Yep.
Or if you're in a vegetative state, or just there's a lot of scenarios where you're still with us, but you're not quite able to make your own decisions. I know it's tough to think about now when you're full, you're pretty healthy, but it happens. Sadly, Miss H kind of, avoided the topic. Nobody likes to think about this stuff, and we never got a trust or power of attorney done. Okay, fast forward to recently. Miss H sadly got to the point where she's really no longer able to take care of herself, and that was sort of reflected in the fact that she was hospitalized and this is during the COVID lockdowns, so it's kind of the worst possible time to get hospitalized.
The worst timing, yeah.
Yeah, right. But she was hospitalized for dehydration and malnourishment. Basically, she was not feeding herself or even drinking enough water. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then once you're in the system, right, you just get bounced around. She had several social workers, and she was moved from one rehabilitation center to another, and then in a nursing home. And kind of no one knew where she was, right? Until she finally got in touch with both me and one of the estranged nieces. I know. I guess at the end, family does matter, no matter what transpired before. Miss H did want to be in touch with family, right?
Yeah, we do see that happen often.
So yeah, once the niece and I were in the loop, we immediately petitioned the court to be named as her guardians. We sought to have potentially the niece as the guardian of Miss H's person, and me as the guardian of her property. And I'll go into what that means in just a second. So that's the background. Sorry, go ahead.
In theory, that makes a lot of sense, right? The family member in charge of her wishes, and yep.
All right. So there's that.
But
have I missed anything, Janice? Is that a good?
No, that's exactly it. Yep.
Okay. So then the question is, who became the guardian of Miss H's person? So first, let me describe what a guardian of the person is. The guardianship role in New York, at least, gets split in two, or can be split in two. And the guardian of the person is the person who has legal authority to make healthcare decisions for Miss H in this case. And that means things such as whether or not to stay in a nursing home or move back home with a home aide, which was really important to Miss H, or arrange other care, or whether or not to make certain, big healthcare decisions. Very personal
Right.
matters,
Very,
right?
very. Yep.
And Miss H asked for her niece to serve. Again, remember, this is a niece who they had long been estranged, but when Miss H reached out, they were happy to sort of re-enter her life because they recognize she's alone and she is blood, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, the niece politely as possible declined. It's a big ask if you think about it. But she offered to stay in touch and to be a source of comfort, but she just didn't want all the responsibility of making every healthcare decision. And, it is work dealing with social workers, nursing homes, Medicare and Medicaid. It's just a lot of work, right?
Right.
So based on the niece's... I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. She did have the right to decline. We've talked about that before. Even though you're nominated, you don't have to go through with it.
Excellent point. Very good.
Yeah.
A nomination doesn't mean that somebody's necessarily going to take on that responsibility and burden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the judge, upon the niece's, polite declination, the judge appointed a court-appointed stranger, which is in this instance, it's an attorney from sort of like a Rolodex of attorneys who do this sort of thing. This court-appointed stranger had, I think, spoken to Miss Hill once in her life, right?
Wow.
And there's no other relationship there, and yet there's a very good chance she's a professional, and she's going to do her best. But it's somebody who's never met Miss Hill, right? Yeah,
right. But do you actually? Could we have a conversation for an hour and I could learn all of your wishes very quickly? Or, I mean, it's tough, right?
The person who's going to fight tooth and nail to get you, home with a home aide.
Right.
Versus, if it's easier to just leave you in the nursing home, you want somebody who's really invested. I would want somebody.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
All right. So the next question is, who became the guardian of Miss H's property? Now, I mentioned before the guardianship role in New York gets split in two. The guardian of the property is the one who has legal authority over funds and makes investing and spending decisions. So it's money versus care, right?
Yep.
And Miss H, again, she 10 years ago went through a whole process of interviewing and vetting and ultimately selected me to be her executor and the person she wanted in charge of her financial affairs upon her death. So she again asked the court that I be named as the guardian of her property during these, let's be realistic, final phase of her life.
Yeah.
And sadly, the judge kind of just ignored Miss H's request and again handed those powers over to the court-appointed stranger. Not really sure what happened there.
Yeah. Seems like the logical answer would have been different than the outcome, but
yeah. So this is sort of a cautionary tale of how, without proper planning, and when you put yourself at the mercy of the court, as Miss H did, you don't get who you want for your personal healthcare decisions, and you don't get who you want for your financial decisions, even if this is somebody who has been nominated as your executor for the past 10 years and isn't involved, right. And the court can just ignore that. So that's...
And while the court-appointed stranger may make, like you said, they're professionals, they're going to make good decisions based on the information they have, but they don't know you personally, right? What your thoughts and feelings are about certain things. So they're going to do the best they can with limited information and their background. So
this is a bit of a downer. I mean, I wish we had been able to get Miss H,
absolutely,
the team she wanted for the final phase of her life. But this is
it wasn't for lack of trying. That's for sure.
Gosh, we had testimony. We did a lot of stuff to try to.
We did quite a lot to. It was quite surprising, but. Definitely suggest in the comments there's a link for a free copy of Anthony's book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan. Can help you plan a little bit better so this isn't the outcome that you may not want.
Very good. All right. You know what? Let's hope that Mrs. H's experience at least helps somebody else avoid this outcome, and there's a sort of a positive spin on all this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Janice, as always. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Let us know if you have any questions or comments, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Talk soon.